Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode If You Could Hide to Kolob podcast. My name's Daniel. This is my brother Clive.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Yeah, great day. If anyone's first time listening, really excited to get into the Abraham story here. We've already started it. We're going through it. Abraham's pretty heavy for the next. I think we got one more lesson about Abraham, and then it's just his descendants from there. So really interesting. I guess we'll just get straight into it.
Clive, we've had so far the creation. We've had Adam and Eve, of course. We've had Noah and the flood. We've had the Tower of Babel. We've had those discussions. So we're kind of up to this next thing. We've been talking about Abraham, and like you said, we're in the thick of it. I've got a very quick quote from Neil A. Maxwell. If we are serious about our discipleship, Jesus will eventually request each of us to do those very things which are the most difficult for us to do. Thus, sometimes the best people have the worst experiences because they are the most ready to learn. Okay, I've got one just update, Clive. So last week I talked about the Apocrypha, and it's funny because when I still bring that up, sometimes it gets kind of skipped over whoever I'm bringing it up to, but I feel like we're getting it more into the curriculum the more we talk about it.
I agree. I've been reading the Bible, then the Ethiopian Bible, then Josephus, and then any other study references I can find. So there's a lot to read because of the Apocryphas.
Well, I'm bringing one more in.
Great.
Maybe controversial, Clive, but I've got a story from the Quran.
Yeah, why not?
I gave this story last week that was in the Apocrypha where Abraham, he burns down a house that has all the idols in it. And consequently, Lot's father is inside the house and he burns to death from Abraham destroying these idols. Anyway, I decided to check if the Quran had this story in it. And it does. So I'm going to quickly just read it to you. Not to take much time, but it is in here as well. So Abraham is in an argument about the idols, and there's a bit of judging going on and whatever. And so, like I said, this is according to this version of the Quran that I have, which is called the English Meaning and Notes by Sahih International. I actually don't even know where I got this from, to be fair. Probably bought at one of those ye olde timey book convention things. They sell old secondhand books.
Always the best ones where I got my Bible from 1870.
So there's a conversation. We found our fathers worshippers of them. So he's talking about the idols. You and your fathers in manifest error. Have they come to us with truth? Or are you of those who jest? He said, no. Rather, your Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth who created them. And I, to that, am of those who testify. And I swear by Allah, I will surely plan against your idols. This is Abraham talking. After you have turned and gone astray. So he made them into fragments. So Abraham destroys them. He makes all of them into fragments, except a large one among them, that they might return to it. And they said, who has done this to our gods? Indeed, he is of the wrongdoers. They said, we heard a young man mention them who was called Abraham. They said, bring them before our eyes that he might testify. And they said, have you done this to our gods, O Abraham? He said, rather this, the largest of them did it. So ask them if they should be able to speak. So they returned, blaming themselves and said to each other, indeed, you are the wrongdoers. Then they reversed themselves, saying, you have already known that these do not speak. He said, then do you worship instead of Allah that which does not benefit you at all or harm you? So he goes on and on and on. Burn him and support your gods if you are to act. So yes. So then they take Abraham and they put him in a fire. And then Allah says, O fire, be coolness and safety upon Abraham. So the story in the Quran is that Abraham goes into this place and he destroys all the idols except one. And then they come in and they say, Abraham, who did this? And Abraham says to them, well, you worship the idols. There's only one left. Why don't you ask that idol who destroyed the rest of them? And then they go back and they come back to Abraham and they blame him for destroying them and for making them feel and look silly. They put Abraham in a fire, and Allah says to the fire, be cool. And so Abraham doesn't die. Anyway, this is the version in the Quran. So I thought I would share that with you, this idea of what Abraham is doing from a different perspective. So really interesting.
That is an interesting story. I mean, Abraham going into fire and not burning is very similar to Alma in the Book of Mormon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the Bible. So,
True.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the Lord works. Well, we've seen the Lord do the same miracles over and over, so it's great. Good one.
All right, let's get going. So we're talking about chapter 18 today. I think we're going chapter 18 to chapter 23, Clive. So far, the circumcision was the last thing to occur, and now we get into a conversation at the start of chapter 18 where Abraham is relaxing, and these three foreign visitors come and have a chat with him.
Yes, so at the very beginning it says, and the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent in the heat of day, and lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, three men stood by him. Now, James E. Talmage says to this, that this should be read this way. And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, end of story. New story. So that happens. The Lord appears to Abraham. Whatever they converse, we don't have that. Next story. In the heat of day, he sat in his tent in the heat of day. Also, when he lifted up his eyes, he looked, and there stood three men. So when we talk about the men and the whole script about everything they're going to talk about from now on, one of these men isn't the Lord. This is three men. James E. Talmage also says that of these three men, one of them is Melchizedek, and two of them are his counselors. So it's as if the prophet has come with his counselors to speak to Abraham and to tell him Sarah's going to have a baby and Sodom and Gomorrah are going to be destroyed, which we'll talk about now in a minute. But yeah, so keep that in mind. So it also does say in verse 3, and said, my Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. And if we look at 3a in the footnotes, it says brethren. So he said, my brethren, if now I pass, have favor. So it definitely is speaking to three men, as you said. Some people say that they're angels, but I think these are more interpreted the ways of angels are holy men, not resurrected beings or beings before they come down to earth. So as Jamie Z. Talmage says, which is what we'll take on board, is this is Melchizedek and his counselors coming with this exchange between Abraham and them and Sarah.
Okay, awesome. So let me just backtrack. You said that the one of them was Melchizedek that we think could be Shem. One question for you. That was a lead. That was not really a leading question. It was just kind of tying up from last week and me trying to just keep my thoughts. Could Noah have ever met Abraham?
10 generations down from Noah, and while Noah was still alive, Abraham was born.
So could they have? They may or may not have met, but either way, Abraham was young.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So these are all very, very spiritual people.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, this is Melchizedek that we spoke about last week, the one that was paid tithes to. Actually, something I didn't mention, and something that is very, very important, especially at the beginning of the Old Testament, is the Joseph Smith translation. One thing I didn't mention, Joseph Smith translation of Genesis 14, it mentions Melchizedek. It says, now Melchizedek was a man of faith who wrought righteousness, and when a child feared God and stopped the mouths of lions and quenched the violence of fire. So even as a child, he had this strong testimony that he was able to perform these miracles. So now Melchizedek and his counselors come and they speak to Abraham. And the story, I mean, we can go through the verse if you'd like, but the story is essentially they come to Abraham and they say, Sarah would have a baby. And it's actually funny, the way I wrote it down is funny, because they come, Sarah has a baby, Sarah laughs. Then the man says, did Sarah just laugh? Is anything for the heart of the Lord? And she goes, I didn't laugh. And they go, you did laugh. It's just funny, the interaction between them. So they say, yeah, you did laugh. The Lord is going to bless you because, Abraham has been told that he's going to be a father of nations. He's had Ishmael, but Ishmael isn't the descendant that is going to carry the birthright because it's Abraham and Sarah.
Clive, I do have another Quran edition of this story.
Okay.
I don't know how many more times during this year I'll refer to it. But anyway, you talked about Sarah's reaction. So the reaction in the Quran is not quite the same, but there's a story being told about Abraham. It literally says, has there reached you the story of the honored guests of Abraham? When they entered upon him, he said, we greet you with peace, peace be unto you. Then he went to his family and came with a fat roasted calf and placed it near them. He said, will you not eat of it? And he felt from them apprehension. They said, fear not. And they gave him good tidings of a learned boy. So they teach him about that Isaac is coming. Of course, in the Islamic religion, Ishmael is the Abraham to Ishmael, and Isaac is of the Christian. And of course, Abraham is Jewish. And his wife approached with a cry of alarm and struck her face and said, I am a barren old woman. They said, thus has said your Lord, indeed, he is the wise, the knowing. Abraham said, then what is your business here, O messengers? They said, indeed, we have been sent to a people of criminals to send down upon them stones of clay, marked in the presence of your Lord for the transgressors. So we brought out whoever was in them of the believers, and we found not within them other than a single house of Muslims. So Clive, what this is referring to now is, of course, these messengers are coming down, and they know that we've got this story of Sodom and Gomorrah that is so challenging. Anyway, just another little bit, another little insight from somewhere else of this same story.
It's good. It's good having these insights because it sort of builds the story a bit more and helps us understand different parts. So the men now leave and they go towards Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham follows. And they explain to him that we're going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. It says in 20, and the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, 21, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is common to me. If not, I will know. And so, the Lord's given them this opportunity to repent, but they haven't. And so the men go, well, we're going to go and destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. The Sodom and Gomorrah will be destroyed. We're going to go there now. We're going to see the people, and they will be destroyed if they continue their wickedness. And Abraham says, well, what if there's 50 out of the men there that are righteous? Would you still destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? And the men said, well, if there's 50, we won't destroy the city. And then Abraham goes, well, what if there's 45? They said, well, if there's 45, we won't destroy the city. And you're like, all right, what about 40? Well, if there's 40, we won't. And then he it's funny the way he phrases it. And in English, I would say him going, well, don't be angry at me, but what if there was 30? Like almost keep trying to push his luck a bit.
Yeah, Clive, it is quite funny the way this conversation is occurring. It starts at 50 and they're going down in fives, and eventually they come to a point where I will not destroy it for 10's sake. And I do often wonder, the number starts here at 50, but in reality, this is Abraham learning. Like the Lord saying, and the Lord said, if I find Sodom's 50 righteous within it, then I'll spare them. But this all comes from Abraham not really understanding what the Lord is aware of and how bad these places are. Abraham's kind of trying to understand himself. Well, if there's all these people, what are you going to destroy it for? And the Lord's saying, well, there isn't. I know there isn't. This is why we're here. It's so wicked that I've been through this. I've seen this movie before. Last time I had to send a flood. Like there is a reason why I'm trying to get rid of this wickedness from the earth, because eventually I need to come and perform the atonement. But if the world is just that far wicked, I'm not even going to be able to do that. And I've got to kind of course correct.
Yeah, that's what something I was going to ask you. What he kept giving them saying this and that and 30 and 20 and 10, and knowing that these men are righteous men. But yeah, you're right. He did he not quite understand how much the Lord knew? Like, well, I mean, because maybe to him he's speaking to prophets, and maybe he's going, well, you haven't been here. I know the Lord speaks to you, but you haven't been here. What if there is righteousness and things like that? And I wonder if his main concern was for Lot, and
Yeah.
will Lot still be saved? Because Lot's got a family at this point now. He's got a wife and he's got 2 daughters. Well, and actually he's got a lot more. He's got sons, because it talks about, which we'll get into in a minute, that he's got in-laws. And sorry, he's got more daughters. He's got son-in-laws out there. So anyway, so the men go. So Abraham leaves them to it. He goes back home, and the men, Melchizedek and his counselors, they head off towards Sodom, and they go and meet Abraham. Now and they go and meet Lot. Now Lot bows down before the men, as Abraham did, which I didn't read because I'm not trying to read it all because there's a lot of chapters to get through today. But basically, the same thing when the men came. Abraham offered them food. He bowed down to them, and the same thing that Lot did. He bowed down to them, gave them food, invited them in, washed their feet, just as Abraham did. And, then he goes about, and then the next part of the story goes on in chapter 19. So they said that, he said, would you stay with me? Stay with me for a bit longer. And they said, no, what we're going to do is we're going to go wander the streets. And then he pressed upon them like, well, stay with me a bit longer. Let me wash your feet and we'll eat and we'll do all this sort of stuff. And then you can go out. And he said, all right. They said, all right, well, let's do that. We'll stay with Lot for a bit longer, but then we'll go out. See, Lot knowing that it's not a great place and he doesn't want these men really out there on the streets. So then before they went to sleep, people came to Lot's house. Now, this is why the Joseph Smith translation is so important for this story. And I think it's important to press upon that what happens next needs to come out of the Joseph Smith translation.
Okay.
So the story goes that these men come to the door and say, we want the men that are in your house because they are good-looking men. We want them out here. And Lot says, no, but take my daughters instead. But the Joseph Smith translation clears this up quite well. Now, if we look to the Joseph Smith translation of Genesis chapter 19, this is the story, and I'll read it, and I'll read it as quick as I can. And they said unto him, stand back, and they were angry with him, and they said among themselves, this one man came in to sojourn among us, and he will needs now make himself to be a judge, and we will deal worse with him than with them. So basically, he's not let us in. Who is he to not let us in? This was after the wickedness of Sodom. And Lot said, behold, now I have 2 daughters, which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, plead with my brethren, that I may not bring them out unto you, and that ye shall not do unto them as seemeth good in your eyes. So you're trying to bash down the door, you're trying to get these men, but I have daughters in here as well. So not only do I not want you to come in and take these men, I don't want you to deal with them either. I don't want you anywhere near my family, basically is what he's saying. For God will not justify his servants in this thing. Wherefore, let me plead with my brethren this once only, that unto these men ye do nothing, that they may have peace in my house, and therefore come they unto the shadows of my roof. And they were angry with Lot, and they came near to break down the door. But the angels of the God, which are Melchizedek and his counselors, which were holy men, put forth their hand, and pulled Lot unto the house unto them, and shut the door. So these men trying to break down the door, and it's important to know that Lot didn't try and sacrifice anyone, but said, no, you're not taking these men, you're not taking my daughters, this is it. And then the men came and they saved Lot, they dragged him back inside, they shut the door, and they were able to lock it away from these men. The men explained to Lot that we're going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. We've been here now, we've seen the wickedness of it. Gather your family and leave.
Yeah.
So then Lot goes out to his extended family and he speaks to his sons-in-law, and they thought that he was kidding, or they at least didn't take him seriously about what's going to happen. So Lot has family in Sodom. I keep saying Sodom and Gomorrah. They both get destroyed, but Lot's in Sodom.
Well, we learn a lot about that during when Lot was first with Abraham and Sarah, when they first left the initial area, that Lot went to where he was taken captive at one point, but he was in Sodom, not frequently, but certainly semi-frequently. Goes to show that he was familiar with the area and he laid down roots there of some sort.
Yeah, well, it says that he faced his house towards Sodom, so it must have been within the boundaries, is what
Yeah.
I would sort of describe. Yeah. So because his extended family didn't go, it was really just up to him, his wife, and his two daughters. And the story goes on. There's a bit of a story in there where the men say, "Go and flee to the mountains," but then Lot says, "Well, with the destruction of the city, we're not going to make it to the mountains. So can we go to Zohar, which is sort of the base area of the mountains?" And so when the city is destroyed, the city of Zohar, which is outside of the destruction, is protected from anything that comes within it. It's interesting. So the scriptures say that the Lord rained down fire. Josephus said lightning bolts hit Sodom and Gomorrah. So whether this was the Lord organizing the weather in a particular way, or if fire just did rain down from heaven.
Well, shall I read it out? We're in Genesis chapter 19, verse 23. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then, this is 24, then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and that which grew upon the ground. And then, of course, Clive, then we have this next very famous part. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt.
Again, this is one of those things where the Bible seems so unfair the way it describes something I talked about last week about how Hagar was kicked out because Sarah was just completely jealous of Ishmael, which the Bible just made it out that way. And this makes it out that they're all running. She turns around, boom, salt. I mean, if that was me and I was running and the Lord did destroy it, wouldn't you check it out? You'd probably want to have a look. But there's more to it. If you read it properly, his family get to Zohar and then the destruction happens. So it's not that she turned around and looked back. It's that they had riches in Sodom and Gomorrah. So she wanted to go back and get her things.
She wanted to get her things she wanted to dodge the brimstone and go and get those worldly possessions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what her actual plan was, but yeah, it was more of she goes back and gets those things even though she's been told to leave. So because she went back, not because she turned around real quick to have a glance, but because she went back, that's when the punishment came in of turning into salt. So then other things happen as well, obviously. Lot's daughters thinks it's basically the end of the world. So Lot and his daughters eventually go up into the mountains where they're supposed to go. Yeah. And then his daughters think, well, it's the end of the world. We're the last people in the world. And so it's up to us to repopulate the earth. So they get their father drunk and they both get pregnant.
Okay, should we go back to should we get back into the story of well, we've got chapter 20. I don't know how much we want to keep talking about here, Clive. We've been talking about almost half an hour. So we've got this story in chapter 20 where there is confusion, at least, with Abraham saying that his wife Sarah is his sister. And he does this in order to kind of protect her, or he thinks that if he says that he's his wife, I think I talked about this in an episode ago at least. If he says, "Oh, this is my wife," then Abraham thinks he might get slayed, so that they can take Sarah for their own. But I find it a really quite an interesting story here. So they go to a place. They kind of journey to a place. I might just read a couple of verses here. Verse 1, Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country and dwelled between Kadesh and Shur, and so journeyed in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah, his wife, "She is my sister." And Abimelech, king of Gerar, I don't know if I'm saying that right, sent and took Sarah. So Sarah gets taken away, is taken away into the inside. and Abraham's kind of in a position here. But the Lord comes and um, chats to, I don't know if that's the right word, he kind of comes to Abimelech in a dream, the king in a dream, and says, essentially, you don't know who you've got here. Also, she's the wife of a prophet. You need to make this right quite quickly. Um, why would this story be in the Bible? That was when I'm going through this, I'm reading it, I'm understanding it. I think that the most important thing here is that Sarah is aware that she's going to have Isaac, and they're traveling, and then we've got this kind of story in here. I guess maybe is it a lesson to us as the readers that Abraham was kind of known, or he needed to be known, and he had this prophetic status at this stage? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like you said, this is the second time it's been spoken of. It's the same Abraham, same thing. You know, he went and said, "This is my sister." I see it. I mean, I don't know, but when I read it, I thought, I wonder if this is a temptation for Sarah to say, "There's so much in Abraham's life. There's so much wickedness surrounding. Like, look what happened to Lot. She can stay with this leader, this ruler, and her life would be a lot easier." So Abraham's gone, "This is my sister," and he's gone, "Sweet, I'm going to take her in. She's going to be my wife from now on." And Sarah could have gone, "You know what? It's too difficult with Abraham, and it will make my life so much easier." But she didn't. It did, and you know, the scriptures didn't even say that thought crossed her mind. But I wouldn't, so that's just what I thought. I wonder if this is Sarah's opportunity to overcome the temptation of taking the easy life. I'm pregnant now. I need to take the easy road and look out for me, for my child. But she didn't. She went straight back to Abraham.
Well, the other thing is, in the end, they're kind of shown the door with a blessing from the king. They're given a whole bunch of stuff, and they're also given 1,000 pieces of silver. Now, later on, I think Sarah would use, I think it's 400 pieces of silver. And I'm just thinking, is that kind of tied to it as well? Abraham and Sarah leave this with a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe they've been topped up, and their physical needs or their temporal needs are being covered from this exchange.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know. Yeah, it's in there. It's in there for a reason. So,
So Clive, in chapter 21, it's exactly the same in 21 as it is in the Book of Jubilees, except that just in the Book of Jubilees, it gives a little bit more in terms of the dates and the times. It says, "And in the middle of the 6th month, the Lord visited Sarah and did to her as he had spoken, and she conceived, and she bore a son in the 3rd month, and in the middle of the month, at the time of the Lord had spoken to Abraham on the festival of first fruits of the harvest, Isaac was born." Genesis 21, "And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken, for Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time at which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, who Sarah bare to him, Isaac." Now we get into this next part here. Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. So now Abraham is continuing this tradition of everyone in his household, all males, being circumcised. This is this outward covenant to the Lord that they have been commanded to do. And of course, Jewish people still do this to this day. So this is kind of then where we finish off here at the start of chapter 21. We now have Isaac, and that kind of family is complete.
yeah, and then after that, then it goes on to talk about Hagar and what happens with her once she leaves. So Hagar leaves, and you know, obviously Abraham is a bit worried about what's going to happen to them. And the Lord says this in verse 13 of chapter 21, "And also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed." So yes, Isaac is the one that's going to spread, and the lineage is going to come from him. But the Lord has made a promise with Abraham that his seed will spread. And we know, as we've mentioned a few times now, that the Islamic line came from Ishmael. And that is a massive, massive religion around the world, as well as Christianity. So Christianity has followed Isaac, Islam's followed Ishmael, and the two nations have blown up. They're huge all around the world, and this is from Abraham's promise. But it wasn't easy for Hagar. So Abraham took bread, took water, gave it to Hagar so she could go about her journey. And when the water was spent, Hagar was worried that Ishmael was going to die. And she places him under a tree, and she stands afar off because she can't stand to watch him die. But when this happens, an angel appears to Hagar and says, "Pick up your son." And then the Lord opened up her eyes and she saw a well full of water. And basically she was saved. She found a city and she was able to settle. It wasn't 100% easy pickings from then on, but from then on, Hagar and Ishmael had many other children after that. And it does talk about that later. I think it's chapter 25. And then all the things are fulfilled. So Abraham with Isaac is fulfilled. Hagar with Ishmael is fulfilled. And the Lord's promises have been kept.
Yeah. Clive, should we get now into the story of Abraham sacrificing, or the attempt of sacrificing of Isaac, which I am my most fondest memories of this is in I think the movie is called Year One, starring Jack Black. It's a little bit distasteful, but the scene of this is very, very funny. Should we get into that? Is there anything you wanted to look at before then?
There is not. Yeah, I reckon we get into that. I feel like this is the crux of the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay, so Abraham is instructed that he must do this offering, as we have come to know, and he goes up with a couple of different people. He doesn't just walk up there with Isaac. He's in verse 3 of Genesis 22. It tells us that he goes up there with two young men. My understanding here is that there is lots of things to go up there to take up into the mountain. So he does so. And he's doing this for a few days, because in verse 4, on the third day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto the young man, "Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship and come again to you." So Abraham's just going up. He's hoping for the best, but he says, "Go up there. We will return." And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together. So they take this wood off the young man. Isaac now has to carry a bunch of it, and they head up. And you've got to kind of really read it slowly to paint the real picture, or at least I find. And this is verse 7. And Isaac spake unto Abraham, his father, and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am, my son," which is important for later on. Put a pin in this for soon. And he said, "Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?" And Abraham said, "My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering." So they went both of them together. So Abraham is trusting in the Lord here. He's aware of the atonement, and he's saying that the Lord will provide. And he's teaching his son also. And they came to the place which God had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son. And I'm convinced, Clive, laid the wood in order means something more than what I know.
I'll just say, we got to remember how Abraham was introduced to us. He was introduced to us about to be sacrificed by his father. And everything that's come about since is because of the prayer that he did while on the altar to then be freed, and then left and took Lot, and everything else since, because he was going to be sacrificed. Now the Lord's asked him to do the very thing that his father was going to do to him. Like, this must have been such a difficult decision, especially because finally, after all these years, Sarah's able to have a child. Now the Lord's asking Abraham to offer him a sacrifice. Now, when Abraham goes up and and as you read there, he lays down the wood and he bounds Isaac. Isaac's 25 at this point. Isaac definitely could have fought back and gone, no, I'm not doing this. There's no way you're doing this. Now, Josephus gives us the answer of when, um, he goes up there and the reason why Abraham is able to bound Isaac so easily. And I'm just going to read that here. So Abraham says to Isaac, he explains to him that the Lord has granted me a son. And now the Lord has done all of these things for him. And it actually lists off a load of things that the Lord has done for Abraham. And these are the things the Lord has done for me. And this is all he asks in return. Now, this is Abraham's reply. Now this is Isaac's reply to Abraham. Now Isaac, who was of such generous disposition as become the son of such a father, and was pleased with the discourse, and said that he was not worthy to be born at first, if he should reject the determination of God and of his father, and should not resign himself up readily to both their pleasures, since it would have been unjust if he had not obeyed, even his father alone should have resolved. So, he's basically saying there that, who am I? If the Lord has asked you to do this, who am I? I'm not worthy to be born if I can't do what you and the Lord have asked me to do. And so that's why he goes, and that's why Abraham binds him up. He is ready, and he understands this.
Well, we are definitely thinking the same line, because I've got a couple of different things about this story as well. One is, again, from the Quran. If you're tuning into our episodes for the first time, it is quite rare that we go to this book, but I've gone to it 3 times in this episode. But the Quran actually says that they had a conversation beforehand. He said, I will go to my Lord. He will surely guide me. O Lord, grant me a righteous son. So we gave him the good news of a boy ready to suffer and forbear. Then when the son reaches an age of serious, work with him, he said, O my son, I see in a vision that I offer thee in sacrifice. Now see what is thy view. The son says, O my father, do as thou art commanded. Thou wilt find me, if God so wills, one practicing patience and constancy, which I'm guessing maybe should say consistency. So when they both had submitted their wills, he had laid him prostrate on his forehead for sacrifice. We called out to him, O Abraham, thou hast already fulfilled the vision. Thus indeed we reward those who do right, for this was obviously a trial. This is a conversation that is had in the story that is being recounted of Abraham. So I do find that very interesting, and I agree with you that Isaac is fully aware of what's going on. Of course he is. He's not going to lay there and just let his dad kill him for no reason.
Well, and then obviously, we know the rest of the story where Abraham does obey, and as he goes to sacrifice his son, an angel appears. And says, lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. So just a moment there of, I know this is everything you've done for, and you are willing to do this for the Lord. Everything that the Lord, it's interesting, isn't it? I think we had this discussion actually in church. Was Abraham asked to sacrifice Isaac to prove to the Lord that he would do whatever the Lord asked, or did he sacrifice Isaac to prove to himself that he was willing to do what the Lord asked of him? It's easy to say, if the Lord asks us to build a boat, yeah, okay, well, I'll go build a boat. But if the Lord says, well, then go, the floods are coming right now, will you do it? And is it to show then that, yes, Abraham understands and goes like, I will do this. I do have the faith. And, from here on out, what do you think?
Clive, I think that Abraham follows through because I think he knows far more than what the text tells us. So I think that the text doesn't tell us everything. And Abraham and Isaac, I'm leading myself to believe that they've seen all of this play out in a vision, because they're actually doing this in a similitude of the atonement For example, Isaac, he is the one that's going to be sacrificed. The scriptures tell us that he carries the wood. Jesus Christ would carry the cross. He would carry the wood on the way, right? On the way to him being sacrificed. Isaac specifically tells us, the scripture specifically tells that Isaac carries the wood. So I think that they're seeing something and they're almost playing it out like it's a covenant that they're taking out, I guess. I'm not sure if I'm making sense in what I'm saying, but I guess it kind of makes sense in my head that they're portraying something that they believe is going to happen. I do have something to add to this, Clive. Maybe if you read...
Not from the Quran, is it?
No. I've done with the Quran for this episode.
Okay.
Maybe if you read 13 and I'll take us through this from a Jewish perspective.
Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked and beheld behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him for a burnt offering in the stead of his son.
This is a very special moment in the Jewish tradition. They have a celebration called Rosh Hashanah. I don't know if I'm going to say that correct, Clive, but let us assume that that was the perfect pronunciation. On the second day of this celebration, they do something called the Akedah, where they blow a ram's horn called a shofar. They blow it 150 times, and it is in remembrance of this specific event. They believe that the ram was created during the creation period, and it was left there this whole time to be an offering for Abraham. And I'm going to read something out here that is from the Mishnah. Clive, you'll be, of course, familiar with the Mishnah. Which is there, it's the oral law. So there's lots and lots of Jewish laws, lots and lots of explanations. One of them is the Mishnah. And so it says that this trial for Abraham is his 10th trial. Sacrificing Isaac is his 10th trial. There's also 10 things that were created on the eve of the Sabbath during the creation period. It says 10 things were created on the eve of the Sabbath at twilight. These are the mouth of the earth, the mouth of the well, the mouth of the donkey, the rainbow, the manna, the staff of Moses, they believe was created during the creation period. The Shema. Please make your next question not what is that. The letters, the writing, the tablets, so that the commandments. And some say also the demons. The grave of Moses was created during the creation period, and the ram of Abraham, our father. So there's lots of things. There's 10 wonders. There's 10 this. There's 7 this, 7 that. But one of them, like I said, is this ram. So many people ask. I say many. What is many? People ask us the picture on our logo. Is it a logo? One of them is of a ram's head, and that is specifically from this story, because it is really rooted deeply in Jewish culture that this ram is so sacred and so significant. It was thought of during the creation period and then came into use here as Isaac goes to be sacrificed in the similitude of the Lord, who would come out in a couple of thousand years from now.
That's a really interesting story. That's very interesting. Everything I've read about the ram, it says, and appeared a ram stock. Like they're going up there to sacrifice. Have a quick look around. Like it obviously wasn't there before. So yeah, there must be something significant about it. And like I said, we'll put it on a logo because yeah, to us there is significance in there.
Yeah.
All right. Should we quickly finish up with chapter 23?
Go for it.
Chapter 23. Not crazy stuff happens here, but
yeah, Sarah dies.
Sarah dies and she's buried. Yeah. Now Abraham doesn't bury her in a place that he has. He goes off and he finds a place to bury them. Interesting about the burial. So Abraham, Sarah, and a bunch of their kids, because Abraham has kids later, Isaac and then the other kids, they're buried in this. Now, you can find this tomb. It is out there. We found it.
You did?
No, yeah.
You said we
Tell
found
everyone.
it.
Tell everyone I found it.
Guys, call everyone you know.
So it's been found.
Right.
And it's completely sealed, right? It's completely sealed. People aren't allowed in there, but people through the history have made their way in, and people have found these tombs. Now, what's interesting is about it is it's very large, like very large, that it's completely sealed off except small little openings. So how they did that, I'm not sure. Um, there's a opening in the floor. They call this the hole of the souls. You can lower a lamp into it, and which has happened, but that's where the burials are, and so well, people think that's where the spirits are able to come out of once they're buried in there.
Right.
But over the history, people have gone in there. Um, Crusader monks have entered the cave reportedly, and visited some of the sacred sites. But an interesting one is back in 1967, a 13-year-old girl was lowered in there, and she went in with, and she went in and said she found a series of chambers, ancient pottery, and confirmed that there is stone staircases and other tombs further down. So who
Wow.
else is in there? I'm not sure, but it's fascinating, and you can look it up. I might even put a picture up now if you're watching it on YouTube. Yeah, it's quite interesting to look at. And this is it. This is the cave of Abraham, or the burial where Sarah was buried in chapter 23.
Clive, do we have time to talk about Rebecca?
Next week we do, because it's next
Okay.
week's.
Oh, is it next week? Oh, yeah,
Yes.
that's right. We're ending on chapter 23. Awesome. I was like, when are we going to get to her after 50 minutes? Okay, awesome. Well, I think let's leave it there. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of You Could Hide to Kolob podcast. Catch us on Facebook, Instagram. Catch us on YouTube. Subscribe to us there. I'm really enjoying the Old Testament so far, and we hope you all are too. And yeah, drop us a line how you're enjoying the Old Testament. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you next week.